That's the part of the program where we will give the chance to each of our panelists to ask the panelists some questions. So we have heard 4 presentations from each member of the panel, and this is the time where they can maybe ask one of the other panelists certain questions, just for them to elaborate on maybe some of the ideas that they've mentioned, or maybe some of the solutions that they've mentioned, how maybe may deal with a specific example, maybe deal with certain problems that have been raised. So I'll open it up to the panel to ask each other questions. Just direct your question to a specific member of the panel, and it will go through the chair, and I can ask the question, no problem.
I would like to ask a question, Dr. Abdul Wahid. I took a personal offense at his implicit suggestions that we should infringe on our national sovereignty. To me, this is unwarranted, and Libya as a state was born in 1949 out of the UN General Assembly vote. And our territorial integrity is something that is non-negotiable. Libya was formed as a result of the union of 3 federations, Fezzan, Cyrenaica, Tripolitania. And somehow those who proclaim to be Muslim brothers and have a common denominator where we stand on equal footage, I find it such sentiment do not stand. To the contrary, we in Libya pay homage and respect and appreciation to United States of America, led by NATO, in liberating us from the clamps of the tyranny of the regime of Gaddafi. If we've left it for our Muslim brothers, most likely we'd have all been slaughtered. And yes, they came, NATO came to help us because we have oil, because we have a healthy foreign investment entity that holds in excess of $700 billion. But I feel that this wealth has been a curse on us, and it's about time that we use it to build Libya, not to share it with others or to let Egypt annex us.
I'll let Dr. Abdul Wahid respond.
Please don't take personal offence to it. I disagree with a lot of what you said, but I didn't take personal offence to it. Look, our organisation exists in Libya, and it's existed in Libya for decades. In fact, we're amongst the first people that were imprisoned by Gaddafi, and then in those university executions, that they were our brothers. We will be arguing the case, okay? And there'll be people like Brother Ahmed that will disagree with that case. Because actually, you know what's beautiful about what's happening in the Arab world at the moment is that for the first time in decades, there's a debate about the future. And what's even more interesting is when you look at what's happening in Europe today, and in the world more generally, there's actually a debate about what's happening in the world and what the future of the world should be. So I think, in my humble opinion, you know, almost every Libyan I've ever met is one who would probably disagree with the views you hold. But I'm not a scientific sample. Libya is actually, you know, Tunisia, and my question to Ons was going to be, Tunisia had a reputation for being the most secular of all the Arab countries. Is that true? But I can tell you this, my experience of Libya and Libyans is that they are amongst the most Islamic of the Islamic countries, which really doesn't surprise me why the media here were portraying some of the rebels as Al-Qaeda sympathizers for having gone to Afghanistan and having gone to Iraq to support their brothers who were suffering. That borders were going to be an obstacle to their unity in believing and helping other people. And I think, yes, if the people of Libya thought that they were going to be swallowed up by the regime in Egypt, they would probably have an issue about that. And yes, the regime in Egypt did sit by when it could have done something which would have prevented NATO coming in. But I think to just narrow it to say, oh, you know, since 1940s we've been a nation state, therefore we have to be a flag-waving country as we are. Actually, you know, in my experience, you go and talk to a random sample of Muslims, ask them what's the thing they want most. Unity will come within the top 3 answers. Unity. It's a really strong emotion amongst Muslim people. Unity. And, sorry?
Is it possible that we could take comments from the audience later on? Okay. We have 4 panelists.
You know, I'm not saying you have to believe everything I say. You go out and ask people themselves. And I think, in fact, I just say the example I've given you of Libyans going, whether it's back in the 1980s to Afghanistan, or the 1990s to Iraq, or the noughties to Iraq and Afghanistan, it's there, it's well known. And they weren't Al-Qaeda sympathizers. They were just people that objected to other Muslim countries being invaded.
Before I ask on the question, is it possible I could remind the audience that the time has been specifically allocated for members of the audience to ask the panelists questions? So is it possible we could limit our maybe contributions and comments to that specific time? Thank you very much. So the question to Ons would be that before the revolutions happened, Tunisia was seen as maybe the most secular Middle Eastern North African country. Is it true, and maybe could you comment and give some examples on the issue?
Yeah, this is correct. I think this is what Dr. Abdul Wahid, yourself and I thought for decades, that Tunisia is the most secular country in the Middle East, in the Arab world. But you need to look at what's happening now and discover that that idea was only enforced on people. Islam didn't take any part in their life. Anyone who had a voice for Islam will be jailed, will be tortured, will be dismissed from the political map. So I think the best example to answer this question is the last week or the last 2 weeks elections we had in Tunisia, where the secular parties gained, I think, about 13 seats out of the 217 seats of the new parliament. I don't necessarily agree with the Islamist party that won in these elections, but this gives you an idea about how the Tunisians think and what the Tunisians, whether is Tunisia a secular country or not. A quick comment to Brother Ibrahim here. He thanked the West, the United States, the West, the NATO for helping them to get rid of Gaddafi. Would you like also to thank them about putting Gaddafi in power for 42 years? Would you like also to thank them about the weapons they sold to Gaddafi, which they called they killed the 30,000 people you mentioned in your speech, and the 50,000 missed? Would you like also to thank them about taking the oil of Libya for free? And would you like also to thank them for the French companies who took 20% of the oil of Libya after this revolution, and 30% went to the British companies, and the rest for other Western companies? If you like.
Okay, yes, I would like to thank United States of America, NATO, Europe, and as a matter of fact, we have, we have decided to change the most beautiful square in Libya. It's called Algeria Square. Now we have changed it to the France Square, because as a token of respect to the French, to His Excellency Mr. Sarkozy for leading the NATO forces to liberate the Libyans. Yes, when I am a Libyan and I can see that I'm being slaughtered like rats and dogs, do you think I'm going to wait and say, who's going to defend me? Is it a Muslim brother or is it a European? No. Humanity is equal. And so far as 70% oil companies say this is delusional. We have a national oil corporation. Everything is transparent. 50 years ago, the oil production was divided, 51 to Libya, 49 to foreign operators. Today, the oil production agreement, 92% to Libya, 8% to foreign operators. What's going on here? Plus, now I recall from my university time when I was at Bradford, the only two societies that they were more or less like a political cult and not only make people become brainwashed but brain dead is Hizb al-Tahrir and al-Muhajirun. So it's a fact. They don't reason, and thank you for allowing Muhammad Bouazizi to lower the barrier of fear of us, and from now on everyone has the right to express himself, and we would like to build bridges of understandings. We don't want clash of civilizations. We see that North Africa and Libya specifically can be the role model, can be a Rolls Royce of democracy in the region. We value human rights, and yes, we see that political Islam is a disgrace from the Amawi, the Abbasi, the Uthmani. We would like, yes, because if you are not happy with Western democracy, then go back to Kabul, go back to Addis Ababa, go back to Somalia and live there. Don't enjoy the pleasures and the trappings of Western democracy.
I know it's getting a bit heated, but if you didn't get the title of the society, it's called Belief and Reason. Everyone has beliefs, so we ask them to explain why they believe in that in a specific manner. If you do disagree with them, like we have mentioned, we have allocated a specific time, so please keep your comments and your chants at that time. But we would want to mention something to the panelists as well.
Excuse me, no punching, huh?
Is it possible you could mention something to the panelists as well, that whenever you do respond, please maybe try and keep specific gestures out of the way and make more of an intellectual or ideological point. Thank you very much. Dr. Abdul Wahid wanted to maybe respond to it.
Yeah, I mean, Ahmed is welcome to his views. I really can't see that they're going to gain much traction in the Muslim world, believe me. And those of you who may like to see them gain traction in the Muslim world, I think need a bit of a wake-up, because, you know, I think most people I know here in this country don't have any time for the kind of rulers that exist in the Muslim world. Yeah, the dictators that are there. They don't have any time for them. At the same time, you know, most people I meet here are actually seriously questioning the values that people here have accepted as norms for so long. Whether it's the market economy, whether it's liberal democracy, which all these things have huge question marks over them, which they never had in people's minds 10 years ago. So, you know, I think it's kind of shallow if you hold on to those things in a very dogmatic way and you just rubbish people that are bringing something new to the table.
Well, that's exactly what you've just done.
But like we've already mentioned, is it possible for us to comment?
No. Listening to a word you just said.
No, but the point is, our members of the audience will have an allocated time to raise their questions and queries. So is it possible you could please raise to that time? I'm pretty sure I'm speaking English, as you guys understand. So is it possible you could limit it to that specific time? Thank you very much. If Hans wants to make a point.
No, they won't.
No, go on, continue.
Right. Thank you very much. I'd like to comment on the again about Abdul's point. The unity in the Muslim world. I mentioned in my speech about going to Tunisia in June to record a short documentary. When I was in Tunisia, I've seen a huge amount of Libyans in Tunisia who fled Libya because of the war in Libya. Some people said there were 1 million Libyans who fled to Tunisia. So you can't, you can't miss seeing Libyans in Tunisia or seeing their cars and their number plates in the streets. And in this documentary I interviewed, was specifically to interview Tunisians, but I had also to interview Libyans because of the numbers I've seen. And asking the Libyans about how do they think about being in Tunisia, how do they feel being in Tunisia. Most of them, all of them said they feel like they are in their own countries. And going through the borders to Tunisia, from Ras Jdir and from Dheba and from these places, they've seen fake borders. they've seen fake flags, they've seen fake governments. They felt like they are in their own countries. Even our names, the family names are the same between the Libyans and the Tunisians. The language is actually the same. The tradition is the same. The history is the same. The religion is the same. So I don't see a problem with being unified with Libya in the future.
Okay. Basically, I came here to describe how we would like to build democracy in Libya. We would like to build a secular Islamic democracy, where we will say there is a separation between church and state. We feel that Western democracies are very advanced. They have a better model than us. We have failed politically, Islamic politically, and we do not see any infringement on our national sovereignty if we call for direct political help by the UN. In a similar manner that they did in 1949. They've sent a Dutch lawyer, his name is Adrian Belt, who governed Libya for 2 years, and he laid the foundation for democracy, and he wrote the constitution for us. We are now in the process of doing the same engagement. The United Nations Personal Envoy of Ban Ki-moon in Tripoli, it is His Excellency Mr. Ian Martin. He is a renowned diplomat. He used to be head of Amnesty International. He is the person who established East Timor, Eritrea, and other countries. We very much endorse his role, and we feel that in 2 years from now, when we have the first opportunity to walk to the ballot box in 45 years, the Libyan people will vote for the Democratic Party. We in Libya, by nature, are Muslim. We have a minority called Amazigh, known as Berber outside. We also have a very small minority, Libyan Jews, that were expelled in 1967 after the war that Egypt was defeated in. And I feel the way we have expelled the Libyan Jews was un-Islamic and against natural justice. We are the only political party that has given right for Libyan Jews to return back to their country, and this is not as a foreign policy of the Democratic Party, but this is their Islamic right, because the only two indigenous people that lived in that land of the world are the Amazigh and the Libyan Jews. This is written on the stones, and the stones don't lie. So we in the Democratic Party, we want to be progressive, we want to move forward, and we are safe as long as we don't have Hizb al-Tahrir or al-Mahajirun or the Wahhabi or the Salafi coming into Libya. We are a Maliki by nature, therefore we have many rich Sufi schools, and the only difference between us and them that we worship God out of love, not out of fear.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
I'm very keen to come back, but I'm also very conscious that Brother Nadeem hasn't said anything.
I'm listening.
You're happy? You're happy with the punch bag in the middle. One of the things that this is speaking generally now, not specific to anyone in the room or anyone in the panel. Just speaking generally, so don't take it personally. One of the things that really gets my goat is actually that, you know, in the Muslim, our party is called Hizb al-Tahrir, the Party of Liberation. Tahrir Square is now famous, of course, Liberation Square. And the biggest problem... No, not the biggest problem I see the Muslim world has faced in the last few decades is needing a liberation of the mind more than any other form of liberation. Okay? The world is dominated by a set of norms that people have accepted as being the aspiration for so long that they don't look at them objectively. The United Nations that supposedly helps us in different countries around the world is the same United Nations that offered the Gaddafi regime in its Human Rights Committee in 2010, only to withdraw it in March 2011. The United States, which we must all bow down and thank for coming to help, is the same United States where Hillary Clinton, when they released 1.5 billion of Libya's own funds, the funds that belong to the people of Libya, out of the 170 billion She said, we hope and expect that the Transitional National Council will abide by all the things we expect of them and their international responsibility, etc., etc., etc. I.e., we hope they will be our slave in every way we say, otherwise don't expect anything more of this 170 billion to be released. Yeah, we are seeing at the moment a huge crisis which every single one of us could feel in the coming weeks and months in Europe. And everybody knows it's because of the banking system. And it makes me want to cry when I read this week that the head of the Libyan Central Bank is saying we need a new banking model. And we're going to invite in the IMF and World Bank to help us design this new banking model. And I'm thinking, for Allah's sake, are people not using their eyes? Even if you're not convinced of what I'm saying about Islam, can you not think outside of what you're independently and actually just look at the world as it is? Even if Libya was forced, even if the Libyan people were forced to accept help from countries that have hitherto been hostile to them through their support of Gaddafi or hostile in other parts of the Muslim world, a common sense person will not suddenly think that Western policy has changed in general towards the Libyan people in the Muslim world. A common sense person will think, thank you for the help, but really we don't actually trust your motives. And we might just want a bit of time to step back and think about our future. It terrifies me that Philip Hammond, the Defence Secretary, tells British businessmen to go and pack their bags at a time when there is no government in Libya, no stable, legitimate government. So when those new contracts are signed, ladies and gentlemen, who are they being signed with? Somebody that has no legitimacy from the people, somebody where there are no checks and balances in the system which will measure how much they benefit personally from them and how much it will benefit the country. You're seeing what happened in the Soviet Union after the fall of the Berlin Wall all over again. You will have Libyan oligarchs and Tunisian oligarchs and Egyptian oligarchs and corruption, potentially, okay, potentially you will have that. And if you think that these Western businessmen, thank you so much, Mr. Businessman, you're going to give us business, we'll sign the contract on the dotted line. If you think that you have something and you owe them something, I don't speak like this, rejecting. I made a very clear point a couple of times when I spoke. I don't think that people that believe in capitalism or believe in democracy or believe in secularism, I don't think they have some sinister motive for doing that. I believe they are mistaken in a belief that this will serve people best. I believe it's a mistaken view, but I don't question their motives and their intentions for believing that. And yet, when it comes to political Islam, when it comes to Islam, we're willing to follow the narrative that comes out of think tanks in Washington and London, not Chatham House necessarily. We're willing to follow those narratives that, yeah, they've got some sinister agenda and this. We need to, you just need to clear your mind and think about what the world actually is, and not this romantic vision that the Daily Mail or the Daily Telegraph or the New York Times tell you it is. Because the world isn't like that. And we actually have to think afresh. And if we don't, actually, frankly, whether it's the Muslim world or in Europe, everyone's going to be in a mess, actually.
I beg to disagree. We don't believe in reinventing the wheel, and if I can just shed on important components that we within the Democratic Party try to propagate, is an awareness for gender equality. We have issues to do with so many Libyan men are disabled now, which means Libyan women have to come into the workplace, and we are also concerned for issues to do with post-traumatic stress disorders. Recently we held a conference at Coventry University where we dealt with issues to do with post-traumatic stress disorders in children and rape victims, and I feel we would like to see direct political help from United Nations, not only to build a democratic secular Libya, but also to establish the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, very similar to what they have done in South Africa. And it's not necessarily a vindictive process, but mainly for the truth to come out and to help Libya to go through a national healing process. We in Libya have a unique dimension, very similar to the Lebanese, where they have different religious factions. We have tribes. In Libya, we have more than 99 tribes.
Summarize the point, because we're
But-
moving into the time where
Yeah.
the audience is asking questions.
Okay, go ahead. I've stopped.
Okay, so
Today.
we'll take the last point from Nadeem, and then we move into the question and answer for the audience.
Yeah, I'm. As I said in the beginning, I'm a bit confused, and I'm now even more confused because Brother Abdul Wahid said he likes unity, and he's against the United States, United Nations, United unity. He's opposed to. But what I want to say is that you know the times that are changing are against overarching explanations like those of Hizb ut-Tahrir. I mean, these are ideas that came out in the 70s and grew out of this and gained credence because they were opposed to the dictatorships in the region. Their narrative relies on being opposed to the dictatorships. So they are part of the same system as these dictatorships. When the dictatorships fall, they also lose something. I think you will come to a point where you will miss Mubarak in Egypt, and you will miss Ben Ali, and you will miss because you rely on the moral high ground of being against tyranny, and this is what needs to change. So you have to be aware that you're part of the old system, not the new one. Yes.